Environmental Construction Program, Contractor's BMP Training. Part 1, Required Submittals. Stormwater runoff can pick up harmful pollutants and deposit them into drainage systems, streams, and the ocean. Construction activities may be sources of potential pollutants such as sediment, concrete waste, vehicle and equipment fluids, material and chemical spills, lavatory waste, and trash. Stormwater is typically not treated after reaching the storm drainage system, which means pollutants could have the potential to reach our streams and oceans. On-site pollutants can also contaminate the soil and groundwater. Help keep our environment clean by implementing the BMPs discussed in this training. Regulations and requirements for construction sites. DOTA's Construction Site Runoff Control Program webpage houses many helpful resources for project teams and can be found at the URL shown on the screen. Under the DOTA Environmental Submittals and Guidance section, there is a link to the SOP Environmental Requirements for Construction, or SOP. The SOP provides in-depth guidance on the entire construction program and is an excellent resource for project teams before and during construction. Contractor SWIP, or SSBMP Plan. The contractor plays an essential role in understanding the means and methods, field conditions, and need for construction support areas. The contractor is responsible for edits to the SWIP or SSBMP plan initially drafted by the designer. Common items the contractor should review and edit as necessary are descriptions of project areas and activities, sequence and estimated dates of construction activities, BMPs to be implemented for the project. Some of these might be included by the designer. However, please review and update as applicable to reflect what your team will be implementing on site. Locations of soil and construction material storage. Site-specific BMP maps with all required features as listed in the plan templates under Attachment A and Section 1.2.1 Construction Plans of the SOP. Note that land disturbing activity outside of the approved limits is not allowed until approval and proper permits are received. Land disturbance is defined as the penetration, turning, or moving of soil or pavement resurfacing that exposes bare soil or base course. Land disturbance includes the land surface exposed by construction support areas such as construction roads, staging areas, vehicle parking and equipment storage, stockpile storage areas, and construction headquarters. If changes to the project BMPs or land disturbance is anticipated, revised documents, including updated SWIP or SSBMP plan, must be submitted to and approved by AREE. A more in-depth explanation of changes that trigger document revisions will be included in Part 2. Other common submittals. In addition to the BMP map and SWIP or SSBMP plan, other common submittals include the following. 1. DOTA construction connection, discharge, and surface runoff permit. 2. Contractor revisions to the site-specific construction environmental hazard management plan, or CEHMP for larger projects, or any project addendums to the existing DOTA environmental hazard evaluation, environmental hazard management plan, or EHE-EHMP for smaller projects or unknown contamination. 3. NPDS for dewatering activities. NOI-G. 4. NPDS for hydrotesting activities. NOI-F. 5. Solid waste disclosure form. 6. UIC final reports for well approval for well construction or demolition. 7. IWS final construction inspection report with a contractor certification form. 8. NPDS permitted project notice of intent, NOI, forms for authorized rep, start of construction, and notice of cessation at the end of project. NPDES notification to start within 7 calendar days before the start of construction is required to be submitted to DOH. For DOH year listed release sites, a 90-day notification to start of construction is required. A full list of documents required for the contractor document submittal is included in the SOP. Documents must be submitted to AIR-EE for review prior to submitting to DOH. After AIR-EE approves the submittals, the SPM or tenant will be informed via email to submit to DOH. VOC. The construction program uses an online platform called VOC. There are quick reference guides available on the DOTA website to aid in using this platform, as well as detailed information in the SOP. Prior to the start of the project, the contractor document submittal process will be conducted through VOC. The contractor will submit required documents prompted in the workflow. Please note that if required submittals, such as the NPDES construction permit, hydrotesting permit, dewatering permit, etc., are not submitted by the designer, the contractor shall be responsible for submitting these documents and completing the review process prior to starting work. Inspection reports for AIR-EE BMP inspections will also utilize the VOC platform. Part 2. BMP Planning. Construction Activity BMPs. Construction activities that include earth-disturbing processes must include best management practices, or BMPs. BMPs help to reduce pollution and contaminants that can enter waterways and groundwater via wind, rain, and infiltration. Common potential pollutants include sediment, trash, litter, oil, chemicals, grass clippings, leaf litter, and metals. BMPs are also used to prevent potential pollutants such as concrete washout wastewater or oils and grease from leaching into the soil and groundwater. A list of accepted BMPs, including associated maintenance, can be found in the Construction Activities BMP Field Manual located on the DOT Airports webpage. The Construction Activities BMP Field Manual is an excellent resource to use for information regarding installation and maintenance of commonly used BMPs. Common types of BMPs. BMPs can be devices that are physically installed around the site, or practices implemented into construction activities to prevent pollution. Selecting the appropriate BMP for the pollutant source is imperative to mitigate pollution to the maximum extent possible. When construction activities expose soil, it can increase erosion potential and sediment discharge off-site. Studies have shown an unstabilized construction site can discharge 35 to 45 times more sediment than forested land or grassy areas. This makes BMPs an important component of construction. Erosion controls include watering, dust screens, rolled erosion control matting, vegetation, check dams, and phasing project activity to minimize the amount of disturbed ground exposed at one time. Sediment controls include filter socks, inlet protection, and silt fences. Many sediment control BMPs can also capture trash and debris. Preventing sediment from leaving the site can look different depending on the site's features and scheduled work. Perimeter controls are a type of sediment control placed along the downslope perimeter of a disturbed area. Perimeter controls capture sediment, debris, and other potential pollutants that have been entrained in stormwater runoff. This means there may be sediment and debris accumulation on the upgradient side of these BMPs that must be removed as routine maintenance. In locations that are at risk of wind erosion, such as material stockpiles or disturbed ground, dust screens can be utilized in addition to sediment control measures along the perimeter of a site. Inlet protection is important to protect storm drainage systems and receiving waters. Examples of this BMP include filter fabric secured to a drain inlet, filter socks or gravel bags along a drain inlet opening. For inlets receiving a heavier amount of stormwater flow, a filter insert, such as a witch's hat, can be utilized. Inlet protection is the last line of defense and used in conjunction with other on-site BMPs. Tracking controls include stabilized construction entrances and exits, street sweeping, and construction road stabilization. These BMPs minimize sediment tracking outside of the project limits. Stabilized construction entrances and exits are required when project vehicles and equipment travel from a disturbed area to paved area. This transition causes sediment trackout, resulting in tracks of sediment on the paved area that has the potential to get washed into the storm drainage system during a rain event. The stabilized construction entrance and exit provides a pad where coarse material can knock the fine material off of tires before exiting onto pavement. The minimum dimensions expected for stabilized construction entrances and exits are 50 feet long, 30 feet wide, and 12 inches deep. In cases where sediment trackout is still observed, increased street sweeping of adjacent roadways or other paved areas may be implemented to supplement stabilized construction entrances and exits. Vehicles and equipment stored on site must have drip protection utilized under any locations which could be a source for fluid leaks. Paving equipment must have drip protection under the full footprint of the equipment. Drip protection measures must be impermeable to contain any leaked fluid or waste from reaching the ground below. Any equipment fueling, cleaning, or maintenance areas must be approved prior by AREE and designated on the project's BMP map. Soil stockpiles must be covered with impermeable measures or stabilized and have toe protections implemented around the entire toe of the stockpile. Stockpiles must be stored at a minimum of 50 feet, or as far as practical, from waterways and inlets. Contaminated soil stockpiles must be stored on an impermeable liner or device, surrounded by an impermeable berm, and covered with impermeable measures. Contaminated soils must be disposed of at a DOH-approved facility by a DOH-approved transporter. If contaminated soil is encountered, refer to the Contaminated Soil Management section of the Construction Activities BMP Manual for required actions by the project team. BMPs extend beyond physical applications on site. Proper planning both prior and during construction can aid project teams to effectively manage BMPs associated with site activities. Phasing projects could decrease the effort spent maintaining BMPs over the life of the project. Scheduling waste pickup sooner could decrease effort spent maintaining covers for waste stockpiles stored on site. Implementing final stabilization measures sooner could allow projects to remove sections of BMPs and eliminate the need for BMP maintenance of those areas. Implementing robust and adequately sized concrete washout facilities could decrease the likelihood of overflow and associated cleanup efforts. Changes to BMPs or disturbed area. The SWIP or SSBMP plan are considered live documents that should reflect the current conditions of the site, and the contractor is responsible for updates during construction. The most common reason a SWIP or SSBMP plan would require a revision is if there is a change to the size and/or location of project areas. Any change to the approved conditions must be reflected on an updated BMP map and SWIP or SSBMP plan and submitted to the AREE BMP inspectors for approval. If changes to land disturbance is anticipated, revised documents, including updated SWIP or SSBMP plan, must be submitted to and approved by AREE prior to conducting additional land disturbing activities. During this revision, the project team must pay special attention to the disturbed area calculation. If the disturbed area calculation changes from less than an acre to an acre or greater, NPDES permit coverage will need to be obtained, and a SWIP must be completed. If the project already had coverage under an NPDES permit, a new NOIC must still be submitted as DOH does not allow for revisions to project area coverage under an existing NOIC. If coverage under an NPDES permit is needed, no activity in unpermitted areas may occur until the permit coverage is granted. Any work conducted that results in sanctions or fines levied by DOH for unpermitted work will be the contractor's responsibility. A pre-construction BMP inspection must take place for any areas phased or added before land disturbing activities may commence in that area, except for those needed for BMP installation. Part 3. BMPs on site. Construction BMP inspections. DOT Airports conducts construction BMP inspections to verify compliance with DOT Airports environmental regulations. Before project work begins, and once BMPs are installed per the approved SWIP or SSBMP plan, a pre-construction BMP inspection will be conducted by AirEE BMP inspectors. Inspectors will review project documents to verify that the SWIP or SSBMP plan is available on-site, necessary permits are available, and the BMPs are installed according to the approved plans. Inspectors will verify that applicable personnel have taken the BMP training. No land disturbing activities other than those needed for BMP installation may begin until after the pre-construction BMP inspection has been completed and all action items and deficiencies have been closed. Remember, land disturbing activities include construction support activities such as storage of materials. The frequency of AirEE BMP routine inspections will be determined by the project scope. A representative from the contractor team should be present to walk the site with the AirEE inspector. We have observed it may be beneficial to have personnel who will facilitate the corrective actions present during the inspection. BMPs in completed areas may only be removed by the direction of the AirEE inspector once all deficiencies noted during the inspection have been corrected. Throughout the life of the project team must conduct self-inspections of the construction site and on-site BMPs as outlined in the SWIP or SSBMP plan. Typically, these inspections are conducted weekly. Common BMP deficiencies. AirEE BMP inspectors will identify BMPs that are in need of maintenance or are malfunctioning during their inspections. The project team should also be familiar with identifying these issues as they conduct their self-inspections. Consider a graded inlet with filter socks surrounding the perimeter or filter fabric attached to the grate. When the BMP is working properly, sediment may accumulate on the outside of the filter sock or on top of the filter fabric. Sediment accumulation is a sign that the BMP is working properly. However, to reduce the risk of the sediment discharging to the storm drainage system, sediment accumulation must be removed regularly. Additionally, tears in the filter fabric or on the filter sock must be repaired or the BMP replaced immediately. Perimeter controls may consist of filter socks overlapping 6 inches or properly installed silt fence along the downslope side of a disturbed area or around material storage areas. These perimeter controls are similar to inlet protections in that when sediment accumulates adjacent to the installed BMP, it shows that the BMP is functioning correctly but needs maintenance. If there are gaps between the filter socks, tears in the filter socks or filter fabric of the silt fence, or the silt fence is improperly installed, the BMPs will not function properly if a rain event occurs and must be repaired or replaced. Storage of liquid materials requires secondary containment measures to capture any leaks, drips, or potential failures of the container. Secondary containment measures may be plastic prefabricated spill pallets or properly sized waterproof containers. When secondary containment BMPs are functioning correctly, there may be liquid accumulation in the bottom of the container. Although the secondary containment measure served its purpose in containing spilled liquid material, the liquid accumulation must be cleaned out to provide the full capacity for future potential spills. Secondary containment measures are sized to accommodate the entire volume of the largest container that will be stored. If there is liquid accumulation within the spill pallet or container and another container spills, there is a risk of overflow. Concrete slurry waste and concrete washout material must be contained in a designated area located at least 50 feet from storm drains, open ditches, and water bodies. The concrete washout must be watertight with a freeboard of at least 4 inches to prevent overflow during a rain event. Metal materials such as rebar and dowels must be stored on pallets or dunnage as well as under cover to prevent contact with rain and runoff. Liquid materials other than water must be stored in labeled, watertight containers and provided with secondary containment. Material stockpiles must be located away from low points prone to high concentrations of runoff and protected with perimeter controls and a cover. The SWIP or SSBMP plan developed for the project site will include a section on spill prevention and control. It's important for the project team to be familiar with the proper response practices for their site. All spills identified during AREE inspections will need to be cleaned immediately, and documentation of cleanup efforts will need to be provided to the AREE inspectors by the end of the day. All spills must be reported to DOT airports using DOT Airport's online spill reporting form. If spills occur directly onto soil, soil must be removed or remediated depending on the size and material of the spill. It is encouraged to frequently refer to DOTA's Construction Activities BMP manual, especially during changes in on-site activities, adjusting BMPs, when deficiencies are noted during self-inspections, or when questions arise. Common paperwork deficiencies. One common deficiency inspectors encounter is limits of disturbance exceeding the project boundaries established in the approved SWIP or SSBMP plan. As described previously, anticipated work outside of the approved project boundary must be reviewed by AREE prior to conducting land disturbing activities. These changes must be reflected in applicable project documents and, depending on the project category and size, may result in needing additional NPDES permit coverage. For projects 1 acre or greater, the SWIP and self-inspection reports must be signed by the same person or position selected as the authorized representative for the project's NPDES permit. If the project's authorized representative departs from the project will need to select a new authorized representative and have the current authorized rep submit the change of authorized representative using DOH's online e-permitting portal. The new authorized representative will then need to revise the project SWIP with their signature. Another common deficiency observed is insufficient training records for the project. All project representatives responsible for installation, inspection, and maintenance of BMPs must take this DOTA BMP training before the start of construction. This includes any applicable subcontractors of the project. Alternatively, supervisors can watch the training, train their employees, and provide a sign-in roster as noted at the bottom of this page. Corrective actions. Timelines for corrective actions are currently listed in DOTA's Construction Site Runoff Program and are subject to change to match updates to state and federal environmental rules and regulations. Violations and enforcement. For state projects, if the contractor fails to provide corrective action documentation within the designated timeline, AREE may escalate enforcement actions, including but not limited to issuing a warning letter or reporting the violations to DOH. DOTA may also conduct enforcement actions such as suspend work, withhold payment, apply liquidated damages up to $25,000 per deficiency per day, or request termination of the contract, depending on the severity of the deficiencies. Additionally, any environmental fines levied against the state by DOH or EPA will be passed on to the offending party. Final inspection requirements. A final inspection may be requested from the project team once project activities have finished and disturbed areas have reached 70% stabilization. Note, projects in areas that do not receive much rainfall may find establishing vegetation difficult, especially during drier months in the summer season. Projects may need to utilize temporary irrigation systems if site conditions allow. If site conditions are infeasible for vegetation and vegetation was included as part of the final stabilization design, alternative final stabilization measures, such as rock or turf reinforcement, may be considered. Project teams should discuss with AIR-EE if alternative stabilization measures are needed and present alternative measures for approval. All BMPs must remain installed per the SWIP or SSBMP plan, and all deficiencies identified during the final BMP inspection must be corrected before AIR-EE approves the removal of BMPs. Once BMPs are removed, land disturbing activities are no longer permitted in the area unless temporary BMPs are reinstalled and another pre-construction inspection is conducted. While BMPs may be removed, the project is not yet closed out. AIR-EE will request any necessary documents and reports, such as but not limited to UIC or IWS final reports, UST removal reports, O&M manuals, PBMP installation and maintenance documentation, CEHMP closeout reports, AST permits, contaminated media documents, etc. We hope this training video gives you a good base of knowledge and familiarity with the references at your disposal for your construction project. This BMP training must be completed every calendar year while the project is in active construction. If you have any questions, please reach out to AIR-EE at dot.air.environmental@hawaii.gov or appropriate AIR-EE personnel. Mahalo for completing this training video and helping to keep our waters clean. Malama i ka wai.